Good evening, and welcome to Metallic Miasma. I am your hostess, number 7. Please sit back, relax, and fear. It all began around a month ago. I had just stumbled across the collegiate finish line and been awarded a diploma in computer science. While some may have seen this as an achievement, I viewed it more as a one-way ticket to stressful mid-level pay for around a decade. Regardless, my wages had permitted me a fairly modest apartment in Boston, Massachusetts, which seemed quite ideal for my bachelor lifestyle, up until I actually moved in. The deceptive quality of this apartment came not from its construction, no faulty wiring or patchy workmanship to comment of, but rather, its truly unappealing nature stemmed from the fact that the couple who lived next door seemed to have perfected domestic dispute into a fine art. Very nearly every night for a month, I heard them screaming at one another. Some nights, I could discern what the topic of conversation was. Others, not so much. After a couple of weeks, I took to just using noise-canceling headphones and moving my bed from the wall which butted up against their apartment to the wall which met with the calm and peaceful outside world. Most nights, I would play games such as Terra Online or Assassin's Creed, half listening to the in-game music and dialogue, but also lending an ear to the incessant bickering of my neighbors. This is why, when it all occurred, I wasn't prepared, nor did I think very much of it at first. I hope nobody who comes upon this recounting judges me too harshly. It was around 10:30 p.m., and I had just gotten one of my Terra characters up to level 46. I was looking into the new skills he could learn, when I suddenly heard screaming coming from the apartment beside me. God damn it, not again, I muttered to myself. Tonight, I thought, tonight. If they do not shut the fuck up before midnight, I'm going over there and I'm going to tell them to be quiet. If they refuse, I'll just go to the landlord and try to get them evicted. The landlord, a guy named Bill Westwood, was in his mid-40s and was sympathetic to my situation ever since I first mentioned it to him, so I had plenty of reason to believe that he would take action for me. After all, these people must have been bothering the person in the other apartment 2 doors down from me, yes. Regardless, after doing a bit more grinding and completing a few more quests, I finally removed an earbud, closed my eyes, and waited for the telltale signs of conflict. A thud, the sound of furniture being moved, angry yelling, anything really. I sat and waited for a good 30 seconds, just willing something to occur, but nothing did. At this seemingly innocuous and persisting silence, I merely shrugged and determined that I may as well go to bed. With this, I said goodbye to my guildmates, logged off, and proceeded into my bathroom. I retrieved my toothbrush from behind the mirror and began to scrub rhythmically back and forth when I finally heard something. There was a loud screech, as that of furniture on hard wood would make, and a scream. The woman by the sound of it. I sighed and mulled over the exact words I would use when confronting them, such to, hopefully, diffuse the situation for the night, without making me the new target of their aggression. Eventually, I spit, rinsed my face off, and put a shirt on, sitting back down on my bed. I had closed my eyes and determined that finding a notepad to record my statement to them was the best course of action, when I heard yet more screaming from the woman, and then the slamming of a door. Hurried steps, which sounded as though they went out into the hall, echoed into my room, and I became rather thrown a-kilter. This was new. Although the screaming and hate-filled words rang within the confines of their apartment frequently, neither the man nor the woman had ever left during a fight. Momentarily satisfied, I put the pen and paper back down on my bedside table, assuming that since the woman had left, there couldn't be any more noise. I was so wrong. Mere seconds after I had laid the pen and paper down on the table, there was a frantic knocking on my door. I rolled my eyes and went to look through the peephole. Upon placing my eye to the hole, I saw my female neighbor standing and fidgeting, her eyes darting back towards the door of her own apartment with disturbing frequency. I opened the door ajar, with every intention of telling her to fuck off. But before I could, she pushed herself inside, falling on the floor just inside my door. I stared at her for a moment, stunned, before managing to regain my faculties, and stammered out, "What the fuck are you doing?" Although I had probably a decent 60 pounds on this woman, something about the way she pushed past me and now huddled on the floor disturbed me. "Is the door locked?" she yelled at me in response. "What?" was all I could stammer out. "Lock the fucking door," she said with terror in her face, voice and eyes, which inspired me to act on an instinctive level. I quickly locked the door and then looked back down at her. Her terror and indignation, which had moments ago permeated her features, had all but evaporated, and she sat, one hand over her weeping face. Rather stupidly, perhaps chivalry isn't quite as dead as some would think, I bent down to comfort her, wrapping one arm around her. "What's wrong? What happened?" I asked. "Call," she said before bursting into tears. "Should I call 911? I asked, connecting the dots. She merely nodded and handed me a cell phone in her shaking hands, which I then used to dial the emergency services. 911, what's your emergency?" the operator intoned almost as soon as I hit the call button. Yes, my neighbor." I paused for a moment awkwardly, realizing that I didn't actually know her name. To offset this awkward interlude, I merely cleared my throat. My neighbor just forced her way into my apartment and seems to have suffered some kind of emotional trauma." At that moment, I heard a banging at my own door. Her boyfriend, I thought, rolling my eyes. Fuck. I just put myself right in the middle of a domestic dispute, hadn't I? When I put my eye to the peephole, though, I saw nobody. The operator on the phone must have heard what was going on, followed by my abrupt silence, and inquired with a polite, "Sir?" "Sorry," I said. I thought I heard somebody else knocking. With this, I began to open the door, but stopped abruptly, the red-hot anger in me draining quickly, it being replaced by the icy grip of terror. Just outside my door, I could see the bloodied face of a man, his face fixed in a sinister grin. He attempted to force his way into my apartment, but I was ready this time, slamming the door on him. I then fell against the door and locked it with my free hand, using my body weight to ensure that it remained shut. Certainly hearing the scuffle that took place, the operator once again asked rather tentatively, "Sir?" "Yes," I said, now breathing hard. "Whoever terrorized my neighbor just attempted to break into my apartment as well. I don't think it was her boyfriend." "Officers are en route, sir. Just please stay on the line with us until they arrive," the operator said, radiating the calmness and presence of mind which I was so sorely beginning to lack. I merely nodded emphatically for a second, before realizing the operator wouldn't be able to see my body language. "Yes, I'll do so," I managed to croak, the words seeming to be stuck in my throat at this point. Where the fuck is the police station, I wondered, my mind racing a mile a minute. I knew I'd passed it dozens of times, but where the fuck was it? This was the city, though, so it couldn't have been that far away, right? My inner monologue was distracted when the banging on the other side of the door intensified. I closed my eyes and steeled myself against the onslaught, thinking, whatever gods that may exist, that my door was made of metal, not wood. My female neighbor's weeping on the floor in front of me intensified as the bangs became louder and packed more force. All I could do, though, was ignore her in an attempt to make sure that the piece of metal that separated us and the psycho outside remained firmly in place. After what seemed like hours, though was likely merely a few minutes, I could hear sirens in the distance, and before long, see the flashing of red and blue lights reflecting my apartment. At this point, the person on the other side of the door let out a blood-curdling scream of indignation and anger before running down the corridor. Before long, the footsteps of police officers could be heard making their way down the hall to my apartment. I placed my eye on the people again, and opened the door immediately when I saw that it was, beyond a doubt, the police. The officer swept my apartment before provisionally cuffing me and bringing my sobbing neighbor and myself down to the station for further questioning. While I merely stated that I had seen a man creeping outside my door, my neighbor claimed that a fur-covered, four-legged creature had entered the apartment that she shared with her boyfriend before viciously murdering him. I later learned that the boyfriend had been cut open from his chest down to his navel, with no murder weapon having been left at or around the scene. I could neither confirm nor deny that the man I'd seen had a weapon. Rather, only that his face had been soaked in blood, as well as a few superficial facial features. After a short while, the police let me return home. The next day, I notified my landlord that I'd be moving out within a month. He didn't question me or attempt to find me. He merely nodded and patted me on the back. As far as I know, the murderer went uncaptured. I now live in an entirely different state and have not talked to my former neighbor in years. But I still wonder every now and then who the man was and if, like my neighbor's account drew into question, he was entirely human. If you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, and subscribe for more.